Well, a very good morning to you once again. It's just gone 6:37 on this Thursday morning. Great to have you with us here on the show. The opposition is questioning former Defence Minister Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula's nomination as National Assembly Speaker. The EFF, for its part, will not be taking part in the plenary session by members of Parliament to vote in a new Speaker. That election is expected to get underway this morning as members return to the National Assembly after a constituency recess. Let's get you some analysis now from some of the opposition benches. DA Chief Whip Natasha Mazzone and IFP counterpart Narend Singh join us now to elaborate on the vote, on the processes regarding the election of Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula, of what is a very, very powerful position, Narend Singh. Let's begin with you. I mean, she's got various powers. She's the executive head of Parliament. Should she be successful in the election of National Assembly Speaker, she stands in for the President if needs be. What does the IFP say about this this nomination by the governing party?
Good morning to you, Michelle, and good morning to your viewers, and good morning to my colleague Natasha. Well, we are very unhappy about the nomination, the person of former Minister Nqakula to the position of Speaker, because, as you say, indicate, it is a very, very powerful position, and it needs somebody that we, as the House members of Parliament, can have extreme confidence in. And unfortunately, as far as the IFP is concerned, the person that the ANC have nominated has not crowned herself in glory in all the other positions she has held, whether it was Deputy Chief Whip, Minister of Defence, or any other position. And there are lots of queries and concerns hanging over her head. In fact, the Joint Committee on Defence has also got something that they are still investigating. So one is very surprised that the ANC would put up the former minister as Speaker, because what they seem to be doing is recycling old people and also rewarding failure. So we are extremely concerned that they've put up the minister for Speaker in our House of Parliament.
So, Natasha Mazzone, civil society organizations, some of them, are arguing around the processes of nominating Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula by the ANC. You know, the arguments center around the ANC conflating party and state. But, I mean, this is how the nomination is done, isn't it? There's no real procedural argument to be made here. It's, as Narend Singh says, it's around the person of Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula.
Good morning, Michelle. Yes, my colleague, Honourable Singh, knows this process very well. This isn't his first rodeo, nor is it mine. And unfortunately, this is the way Parliament operates.
Yep.
It's not a meritocracy. And it's simply an issue of the ANC's cadre deployment policy, where we see a turnstile door policy happening where you fail in one position and the ANC moves you on to the next position, normally to keep a faction or a person quiet or happy, as the case may be. So what we're seeing here is a completely inept previous minister who has failed in every role she has been given within the ANC. She is alleged to have been a human trafficker, alleged to have trafficked a Burundian woman who was in a relationship with her son. She was involved in the Zimgate scandal, where she used an SANDF aircraft as a let's call it an air taxi for other ANC members to go on a jaunt to Zimbabwe. She is embroiled in a process now where the Defence Committee will be investigating certain conditions that arose in the insurrection that she failed to provide very, very important information to the government about. She is certainly not fit and proper to hold the position, and I think as opposition we have finally found our voices and found the guts to stand up and say to the ANC, we will not stand by while you rubber stamp your cadre deployment policy, and we intend to fight back with everything that we have to stop the ANC from simply putting someone inept and incapable of doing the job in charge of one of the most important arms of the executive.
And what form will that fight back take, Natasha Mazzone? Because if the votes are there, it's a 2/3 majority. What happens then?
Well, the fact of the matter is that this morning only members who are in the House will be allowed to vote, and that is according to the Judge President or his or her nominee, Mogoeng appointing Judge Klope to preside over the proceedings that take place this morning. The DA will be putting up a candidate. We are putting up very proudly Dr. Annelie Lotriet as a candidate to stand against the former Defence Minister. We are hoping that the opposition will join us in voting for a very upstanding, very well-known and very respected Member of Parliament. And we are also hoping that the ANC, who are trying to break free from this factional battle that almost saw a coup and saw an economic absolute disaster occur in Gauteng and KZN, try and stop this ANC battle, who would rather burn the country down than see the ANC come into a bad light. So we are hoping that today people will vote with their conscience and not just according to party affiliation.
Narend Singh, let's talk about someone who does or would tick at least some of the boxes insofar as the role of the National Assembly Speaker. As I said, the executive head of Parliament, it should be someone ideally who is impartial. This person should also ideally enjoy the support of other parties in the National Assembly. You know, at least some arguments saying that Thandi Modise in many respects ticked many of these boxes. Thandi Modise also was in Parliament when the announcement was made around an inquiry into the failure of what Natasha Mazzone has just described, the failure of intelligence. That investigation is likely to include the role of Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula in her role as Defence Minister as well.
Michelle, we had extreme confidence in former Speaker Thandi Modise. And I think that's why she enjoyed the support of all in the House. She was firm, she was somebody that we could look up to, she was forthright in her decisions, and she didn't take sides. I mean, she didn't come in there, she came in through the ANC, but she didn't come in the manner that the ANC is now proposing their candidate. But just to go back to what you said about two-thirds, my information from the Secretariat at the table suggests that all they need is a simple majority, and what we would need is just one-third of the House to be present, which is 134 members. Now, we did receive information that there are going to be more than that physically present, and that poses a challenge for us as well, because we know it's COVID, and there are going to be quite a few members that will not be able to travel to Cape Town for various reasons, and they will not be part of this process. Now, I believe that every person has a right to participate in the vote, but be that as it may, there will be a vote today. And as my colleague had said, the one good thing about the process is that there will be a secret ballot. I mean, that's been agreed upon. And hopefully people from all sides of the House would realize that we want somebody up on that seat there that we can look up to, that will do Parliament a great deal of respect. And we know what happened in the Zondo Commission about failings of Parliament as an institution, and we need somebody tough and somebody impartial. As far as the criteria, I think those are the kind of criteria. We haven't given thought to anybody else from any other side. We have been informed by the Chief Whip of the opposition, Honourable Mazzone, that they will be putting up a candidate, and that's something that my caucus is going to consider later on today. But certainly my caucus is not in favour of supporting the former Minister of Defence as Speaker of Parliament.
Natasha Mazzone, who is the candidate the DA will be putting up?
We will be putting up Dr. Annelie Lotriet, a very respected Member of Parliament. She served on various committees such as the Ethics Committee, Powers and Privileges Committee, Rules Committee. She is someone that we think would be acceptable to the whole of Parliament, completely impartial, and certainly someone who comes in with a completely unblemished, untainted record, very much unlike the candidate fielded by the ANC. In fact, it's actually such an insult to Parliament the way the ANC have handled this particular issue, and certainly members of the ANC themselves, many of them coming to us in secret telling us how terribly disappointed they are that after the failed intelligence, the Jetgate scandal, and all the scandals that follow the ex-Minister of Defence, that she would even be considered to follow in the footsteps of Thandi Modise, who was someone who was beloved by Parliament and someone who was deeply respected by all members of the House.
Your final comments, Narend Singh, insofar as, some of the scenarios that Parliament might be faced with, depending on which way today's vote goes. Thandi Modise testifying at state capture, admitting to Parliament's failures under the state capture years, especially insofar as responding to allegations around the Gupta family. Modise telling the state capture inquiry that Parliament has turned a corner in how such scenarios will be dealt with in the future, depending on how today's vote does go. What do some of those commitments by Thandi Modise then look like?
Parliament has to turn a corner. You see, when the Zondo Commission, when it was revealed for the Zondo Commission that Parliament failed, I think it's members of the ruling party within that Parliament that failed. Because as you know, on a simple majority, the ruling party always overpowers the opposition members. And even if we come up with credible suggestions, we are always overpowered. So I think that section of Parliament has failed. So there has got to be ways where the opposition are treated with more respect. We've suggested that even in the portfolio committees, that opposition members should chair portfolio committees. I mean, a fine example is SCOPA, where we see it's chaired by a member of the opposition. That committee works very, very well because there's some checks and balances on the excesses of ministers and state-owned enterprises. Today we see, I do not think we could stop the process at all. It's going to be a secret ballot. I know there are some intentions by organizations to write in and require us to stop the process. So far, in terms of the process, except for the fact that those on virtual will not be able to participate, I mean, everything else is beyond. And hopefully we get another candidate, and the members of Parliament have a choice today. Have a choose, somebody that we can really look up to as a leader of Parliament, other than somebody that would have failed, somebody that failed to even recognize that there was the need for security forces to be out on the ground and deploy the Defence Force when Prince Buthelezi said so, and said, what war are we talking about? And 24 hours later, all hell broke loose. So we need somebody that has a sense of knowing exactly what needs to happen and when.
The IFP's Narend Singh, DA Chief Whip Natasha Mazzone, thanks very much to both of our guests for your time on the AM report this morning. The opposition questioning former Defence Minister Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula's nomination as National Assembly Speaker. We're now told that vote will be going ahead in Parliament, and in fact it's not a two-thirds majority that is needed. It's in fact, according to Narend Singh, a simple majority that is needed. A third of the House is required to be present for that vote. The DA is putting up its own candidate in the form of Dr. Annelie Lotriet.